Hey, what's going on, everybody? Dr. Schilling with this week's oh my God, it's Friday. Holy cow. Welcome to the party. It is the Friday live Q&A coming to you from Secoya Health. And we're excited to bring this information this week, as we do every week, providing answers to your questions that you have interest in. So feel free to shoot your questions along the way if you have them, if they come up along the way, if something we talk about sparks your interest and provides you an insight that you'd like to get more information on. We'll, of course, provide a couple minutes here for everybody to jump on so that people can take advantage of it. But we're going to be talking about a bunch of different stuff today. I'll give you the brief synopsis. If you have a question, looks like Shannon's joined us. Hi, Shannon. See if I can hit the wave button. There you go. Getting all techie here. Fantastic. All right. So we're going to focus today on some different questions. Nutritional yeast, diabetes, shoes, drinking water too fast, protein powders, thoughts on Mary Jane, and hey Gracia, give you a wave too. So we'll talk about marijuana and things like that, and a question about Reiki, depending on how you want to pronounce that. So if you have any questions that have come to your mind, feel free to type them in and I will address them as they come up so that people can get answers to their burning questions about health and wellness. So as is always, carrying around our trusty mug that, I don't know if Facebook's of course backwards, but it says, proceed as if success is inevitable. And in this day and age, with everything that's in front of us and everything, all the challenges we have, you have to proceed as if success is inevitable, because the alternative is really to basically fall back and retreat. And Lord knows there's too much stuff going on right now that needs help. So looks like Krista joined us on Instagram. How you doing, Krista? So, all right. We will get started here. Starting off with nutritional yeast. Someone has a question about whether it's truly quote-unquote inactive, and or can it still cause problems with candida yeast if the body, if you are following a plant-based lifestyle. So nutritional yeast is not known to be a pathogenic yeast. It's not known to be detrimental to anyone in particular, and it's certainly not known to be culture forming, as they say. When you think about culture forming, basically what you want to think about is a nutritional yeast going to cause my body to produce more yeast? Am I going to grow more yeast as a result of taking a nutritional yeast? And generally speaking, that is a negative. That's no. So candida is in all of us. People think, oh, I've got candidiasis, or I've got this and that and the other thing. People are concerned about having too much of something or picking up something from somewhere else. But that's not how it works. You already have candida in your body, just like you have a bunch of other different types of yeast, mold, and fungus. Think of them as like, I don't know, some type of prehistoric beast that would just comb around and pick up garbage, right? That's what yeast does. Yeast picks up garbage. So when you understand that taking a nutritional yeast that's used in cooking and things like that, what it's intended to do is to be beneficial from the standpoint of it's high in protein, and it's going to give you beneficial things to help build your body. I am sure that there is a situation where someone eating a nutritional yeast would be challenging to their system and cause them to have a gut reaction, some type of dysbiosis, or some type of problem where they're not processing it well. Maybe they have an imbalance somewhere in their microflora. That could be a bacteria, it could be a parasite, something like that. But just because you're eating nutritional yeast does not mean it's going to be culture forming. It's not going to grow your candida. So people have that common misconception. It's really great if you use that mixed with tomato paste concentrate for boosting your breast milk production, in case you're a nursing mother out there. I know we've used that with Sarah in the past, and we'll certainly use that with number 2 as she's going through her process into her second trimester now. So basically, there is no scientific evidence to show that nutritional yeast is culture forming, that it will cause an increase of yeast in your body. So you shouldn't be afraid of using nutritional yeast if you have a suspected candida overgrowth. best thing to do is to have someone biofeedback test you to determine whether your body's compatible with it, because that's the gold standard as far as I'm concerned. You can do a lab test, you can do urine, saliva, blood, and things like that, and send it off to a lab, but that lab's going to compare your values to somebody else and not compare you to you. And when you use something like a morphological field technique or quantum reflex analysis, stuff like that, that's going to be the best way, as far as I'm concerned, of giving the immediate real-time feedback as far as how your body can handle something, how well it's going to adapt to it, and how well it's going to react. So, we use different things like sacral command centers and stuff like that in QRA to make sure that your body is not being overdriven, overstimulated, if you will. You want to be able to check your circuit breaker system when you're going to consider taking something. So that's why any type of feedback, neurofeedback, muscle feedback, biofeedback testing is going to be fantastic for that. So I'll leave that one to be. Does diabetes have a yeast-fungus connection? Well, there are a lot of different theories as far as what might cause diabetes. Of course, we think of type 1 diabetes as an autoimmune reaction, your body attacking the beta cells of the pancreas and things like that, the islet cells. And so really, if there is a connection between fungus in your body and diabetes, I think it's circumstantial. That it's certainly not going to be a causative factor. Yeast, mold, and fungus are not going to cause diabetes. As far as it would have to be some abnormal process. But think of these things; they all interplay, right? You have yeast, mold, and fungus in your body. You've got bacteria in your body. You have parasites in your body, and you have viruses in your body, and they all play a role as far as your healing process. And if you understand that, if there is a circumstance where you have diabetes and you have a yeast, mold, and fungus issue, it's most likely because people who have diabetes they're typically dehydrated, they typically have sludgy lymph systems, which means they're not getting their toxins out of their body. So then they probably have congested liver, so they're not storing their blood sugars very well in their liver or in their muscles as glycogen. And so when you get people that have diabetes, you've probably seen diabetic ulcers on the feet and things like that. And what happens is their systems get so congested and get so sludgy that they can't get enough oxygen and nutrients down to their feet. So their feet, and they might get toenail fungus, for example. Fungus is, of course, multifactorial. Some people associate it with deep emotional fear, emotional stress deeply buried. It could also be related to not feeling important and things like that, not feeling a priority in someone's life, feeling insignificant in someone's life. That would be a neuroemotional stress related to that, relating to mold and fungus. Because if there were no stress, there would be no sickness. And so when you think about a bacteria, yeast, mold, fungus, parasite, or virus, if there's an imbalance there, it's really because there's some type of stress that you have unresolved. So when you can address the stress, you can relieve the stress. And you can relieve the disease, if you will, if there is such a thing, per se. So if there is a connection between diabetes and yeast directly, I would say that it depends on the person. Each person's different. Looks like Rachel just joined. How are you, Rachel? All right, so what are the best shoes for babies to learn how to walk? Well, so barefoot's best, just like breast is best and back is best. And when you understand that when you're looking at that kid's walking around on cement or asphalt or something like that, there are different brands. Regardless of which brand you look for or choose, look for one that's very thin-soled, that's just going to keep them from scuffing their feet. You want a child to have the closest connection to the ground as possible and the most contact as much as they can with the ground so that they can stimulate their brains, and that's going to help improve their motor function as well as their balance. So think about the minimalistic shoes. If you're looking for shoes for a toddler or a baby, someone that's learning how to walk, and you have to get something on them, and they can't just put them in the grass or something like that, get a minimalistic shoe. So what that's going to look like is just basically a slip of rubber or something like under the foot, and then they're going to have something to hold onto the foot. There are a bunch of different brands out there, but just type in, DuckDuckGo or something like that, some search engine that you look up for minimalistic shoes. Minimalist shoes for toddlers, things like that, and you're going to find some. I know we've purchased Play shoes before, I think it's PLA, well, it's probably not PLAY. But type in Play shoes, and then for adults, Vivo Barefoot's a great brand. I personally like that type of style because I don't want to be not able to sense the ground. In fact, if you think about our grandparents and parents, they tend to get pain in their feet because they're more toxic and more stressed out, and they have more adrenal fatigue. So they instead of wearing a minimalist shoe, they wear these really thick, probably the New Balance. You think of the New Balance and stuff like that. And what happens is then they get more disconnected from the earth, they're more disconnected from their ground, and they can't ground, they can't feel their feet, and they end up tripping over rugs and stuff like that, and they end up falling and cracking a hip and stuff like that. You've heard all the stories before. But minimalistic shoes are the best as far as I'm concerned, because they provide your foot the protection from getting scuffed up, but they don't disconnect you from your environment. If you don't have really strong adrenals, or if you have a lot of immune stress, that's going to take away from your body, I hope. How you doing? Having a lot of adrenal stress, a lot of immune stress in your body, it's going to take away from your vital energy, which means you're not going to get enough energy down to your feet. As a result, you're going to have need for thicker shoes because you need more padding. But if you have healthy adrenals and you're able to balance all your immune system stress, get the thinnest shoes possible. Wintertime's a little bit challenging because it tends to be cold out, but if you have to wear shoes like that, you want to wear the minimalist shoes. Wear those in the summer, wear whatever you have to do in the winter. But basically, the thinnest sole shoe possible is the best answer I can provide you. Just look up the minimalist shoe and go from there. All right, when it comes to drinking water too fast, what is too fast? Hi. Wonderful. Got another question about yeast. Okay. We'll get back to that in a second. So when it comes to water, can we drink water too fast? Yes, you can. Basically, if you think about it, your body can only process so much at one time. And if you put too much on there at the same time, what you're going to do is you're going to flood your system. And your body's like, wow, that's too much water. We don't know what to do with it. So you're just going to pee it right out. Generally speaking, I think a good mark to look for is like a half a cup every half hour or so. So like a cup an hour, so that's just say you're up sleep 8 hours, you're up 16. Provided that if you drank 16 cups of water, you would be well hydrated, right? Average person drinks a fifth of that if you're lucky. So drink half your body weight in ounces, and then just figure out how I can split that up over the time I'm awake. And if you're not able to do it all the time, think about, okay, I'll be reasonably stationary during this time, and I'm going to drink X amount each interval, right? You don't just want to take, this is probably a 16-ounce mug. You don't just want to suck that down, although you might have thirst at some point that just begs you to drink that much. What you want to understand is if you drink too fast, you will just flush it out. And along with that will go your minerals. So not only will you be sitting on the toilet, or if you're a lady, or standing if you're a male, but peeing it out, but you'll be it basically just washes things out with it. So definitely don't drink too much too fast. Yes, there is too fast. So just sitting and drinking a big glass of water, you're not going to get much benefit from that. You will get some, but you're not going to get as much as you might think. I know too many people that have said, well, I don't drink enough during the day, so I'm going to make up for it at night. I'm going to drink all my fluids between 5 and 10 p.m. and because I didn't drink anything during the day. Well, that's a recipe for two things. One, you're going to pee most of it out, and two, you're actually going to be up at night peeing. So half a cup about every half hour, sip it if you can, and then just go from there. So getting back to this young man's question, Bill asked the question, can yeast or fungus cause eye problems? Well, yeast can affect you in anywhere of your body. It could be your toenails. It could be yeast infection for a lady. It could be a child could have a diaper rash. Someone could have thrush. It could affect your eyeballs. It can affect your mouth, which is thrush. It can affect your ears. A lot of earwax comes from yeast. Incidentally, dehydration and yeast are probably the two biggest culprits that I see on a regular basis. There are other things, but that cause earwax to build up. Dehydration because you don't have enough moisture to vaporize, to have the wax evaporate. And then the yeast, mold, and fungus just plays a role in it thickening and things like that. But regardless of where it shows up in your body, there's a reason why. So your eyes can be related to turning a blind eye to something. It can be shyness, need for attention, the desire to not have attention. Those can be your eyes. We see the eyes and the kidneys. I know in Chinese medicine they talk about the eyes and the kidneys. Basically, they're basically one in the same. So think about your eyeballs as just this little, like a marble, or I don't know what you want to call it. A grape maybe. It's probably better sizing and shape. So if you think about that, it's almost all water, right? It's almost all fluid. It's a viscous fluid. But if your kidneys are weak and you're dehydrated, what's going to happen? You're going to get trouble with your eyes. You wake up and you get these goopy eyes, or your lymph's not draining out, you're getting too much mucus and stuff like that. So yes, you can have fungus in your eyes. There's no question. But you want to understand why. So no matter what question you have about could this cause this, X, Y, and Z, you need to understand, you may get some information about what could cause something, but until you dial into your own story and understand like, okay, this is what's going on in my body, this is what's going on in my digestive system, this is how hydrated I am, this is how much energy I have, these are the stresses I have in my life. When you understand, I look at 7 things: stress, toxins, foods, hormones, infections, what we call microbial imbalances, injuries, traumas, and then neuroemotional stresses. Those are the 7 things that I look for in any one person, because I find that those usually come together and coalesce to create problems for people. It's not just one of the 7 it's the problem. It usually is a combination of things that are creating the problems. So if you understand that, then you're going to say, okay, if I have what I suspect yeast in my body, imbalanced, shall we say, and I believe that it's affecting my eyes, I got to get more of the story. Okay, there's more to the story. It's not just simple enough to say, oh yeah, I got some yeast in my eye, but why is your yeast imbalanced in the first place, and why would it show up in your eye? Okay, so when I mentioned before, we all have yeast in our body. We all have candida. We all have coccidioid type mold and fungus, and then there's a bunch of other stuff. There's mycotoxins in our body, which are what the yeast, mold, and fungus give off. So yes, Bill, to answer your question, you can have fungus in your eyes, and yes, it can cause eye problems if it left unbalanced. Okay, so this individual asks, I find myself having protein powder every day. Is this too much of a good thing? Well, I don't know exactly how much. Hi, Del and Melissa, welcome. I don't know exactly how much protein this person is eating, but if you want to take the basic equation of 1.6 grams per kilogram. Now, your body has about 2.2 grams per kilogram. So somebody just do the math on that. So if I am, let's see, a 50 kilogram, that's probably a little too small. I'm probably 80 some kilograms. So if I multiply that by 1.6, right? So that's 80 plus 60% of 80. Let's call that 60 or 55, somewhere in there. So we're looking at 130 grams, right? So you probably eat less protein than you need to eat. And quite frankly, our senior citizens and our parents, my parents, people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, things like that, they eat too little protein. If you understand that your body is a protein machine, like all this stuff you feel here, you need proteins. Okay? In order to detoxify your body, you need proteins. You can't do anything without proteins in your body, plain and simple. So eating protein every day is great. You most likely need some at every meal as far as balancing it out. Having protein and fat with a carbohydrate is going to help slow the digestion of that carbohydrate. That's a great way to balance your blood sugar and things like that, is having protein and fat with it. Now, some people would argue that you don't want to do food combining. There is some merit to that. You got to figure out what works for you. I mean, I know for me, what I prefer is proteins, fats, and veggies for breakfast and lunch, and then for dinner, I typically prefer some type of complex carbohydrate and a vegetable. Personally, that's what I have found gives me the best health. It gives me the best energy. Helps me sleep well at night. That's from my studies. I basically developed the anti-inflammation food guide. It used to be called the Vitality Food Guide, which you can get off our website easily, or we'll email to whatever you need. It basically balances your blood sugar and your hormones in order for you to have abundant energy, sleep well at night, and decrease your inflammation. Because inflammation is caused in part by insulin. It's a reaction. But so if you had protein at breakfast, protein at lunch, and protein at dinner, and then had maybe a protein shake, you're not basically having 7 protein shakes a day. That's not, I don't know anybody who A, would tolerate that, but B, could actually do it. It's just not feasible. So you look at bodybuilders, and the biggest concern people have is, what about the stress on my kidneys with all that protein? If you look at bodybuilders, their issue is usually their ligaments and tendons that are breaking down because they're doing anabolic steroids, but that's for the people who do that. But they don't have kidney disease. Kidney disease does not come from excess protein. Kidney disease comes from prolonged, unresolved stress, toxins that are trapped in the body that can't get out, things like that, medications that stress out your kidneys, diuretics and things like that. There's a lot of things that do it, but protein is definitely not, in my opinion, based on everything I know and everything I've seen in clinical practice, it's not not going to be the root cause of anything. So you should definitely focus on 1.6 grams per kilogram as far as an optimal intake, and most every human being will never get there. That takes a very concerted effort to do that. Excuse me. Okay. What are my thoughts on marijuana? What do you think people should know? Well, given it's a plant, it's probably been around for a long time. And I know that they're doing things like medicinal marijuana. I know that there are CBD products out there with some THC in it. I think that THC has a great deal of medicinal benefit for people who are in chronic pain, people who have neurological disorders and things like that. I think that it would be much more commonly used if it were legalized, which it is becoming more and more legalized in every state. I think that the cannabinoids that are found in the plant are more beneficial than the hallucinogenic aspect of the THC, although there may be some redeeming medical or medicinal value of the THC itself. I know that it's great for certain people, but ultimately, it's not a judgment call on my part. I would say that the people who can benefit from the positive aspects of medical marijuana and things like that, go for it. Like some people have intractable, unbearable pain, and that is the only thing that works for them. I say, do what you got to do for yourself. As long as you're not out operating heavy machinery or operating a vehicle that might injure someone else, and you're in the comfort of your own home and doing what needs to be done for your health, then I would say that, if, like everything, if it's a plant, go ahead and consume it. If it's made in a manufacturing plant, probably should stay away from it. So I think there are benefits to it. I think that it can be misused like anything. Too much of a good thing can be a bad thing. But, you need to make a decision based on that for yourself as far as what your uses of marijuana is, and if you can use THC-free products and things like that that don't have the hallucinogenic aspect of it. Okay? There's a lot of information out there. You can research marijuana all day long. You can research the history of it. There are people that will provide that information all day long. Hi, Jesse. So what would you recommend would you recommend Reiki healing coupled with what Secoya Health offers Optimize Health? Whether you do shiatsu, Reiki, massage, let's see, pretty much any, you can do trigenics, any type of body work, any type of acupuncture, cupping, things like that. Reiki can be fabulous, absolutely. I'm not an expert, so I won't even pretend to speak intelligently about Reiki, or Reiki, whichever you want to call it. But I have experienced it, and I have appreciated the benefits of it. And yes, it can be very, very much complementary to what we do here. What I do is to rewire the brain and the muscle connection through trigenics, and basically decreasing excessive tone, or when you talk about an over-facilitated, so too much tone in a muscle, or an under-facilitated, which means too little tone. So you either have weak muscles or over-tight muscles is kind of a simple lay term to understand. So that I work to reconnect the brain with the body. Now, someone that does Reiki or things like that is going to work with the fascia. They're going to work with the adhesions and things like that. Now, I'm of the mindset that if your body has an adhesion somewhere, it's there for a reason, and it's because your brain is holding that tension in that area. And therefore, for me to go and have someone break up scar tissue or fascial adhesions, that can be very, very beneficial, provided the brain and the body are connected and that the muscles are balanced and operating strongly in a healthy manner together. Because if you just go every week or every 2 weeks or once a month and because it feels great, that's fantastic. I'm not suggesting you shouldn't go get your self-care and take care of that for yourself. But if you're thinking that that might be the end-all be-all, I would suggest that you might need to dig a little deeper in order to find the root cause of why there might be that trouble there in the first place, right? So I know that for me, in the past I've done acupuncture, I've done cupping, I've done Reiki, shiatsu massage. It's all fantastic, right? I mean, you can hardly go wrong. The only time you're going to go wrong with one of those things is if you have a really congested liver and you go get a massage or a Reiki session or shiatsu, something like that, and you push too many toxins through your lymph and your liver can't receive it all. and your spleen gets overloaded, and all of a sudden you have a detox reaction. And then you're not going to be a happy camper. I've had countless people say, I really feel great during a massage, and I feel good for a couple hours, but then I feel really crappy. And that's really a sign of detoxification or lack thereof, rather. So understand, you want to make sure your downspouts, your drainage pathways are open and emptying out before you go pushing any more garbage into the dumpster, shall we say. So yeah, definitely focus on that. As far as before you get a massage, make sure your liver's healthy and detoxifying, your bowels are emptying regularly, and your kidneys are strong. Okay? What else can we talk about? What other information can we provide for you folks? Don't know what time it is. So, we're here to answer your questions. If Jesse or Melissa or Adele, if you guys have any questions you want answered, any curiosities you have, anything we've spoken about that you want more information on, feel free. Hope, if you have any, I know you're always good about questions. So, or Rachel, anybody have any questions out there? We're here to provide that information. See if I can, okay, here we go. Oopsie. 1 actually, excuse me. So, I know Adele's out in Colorado. I'm sure, hopefully it's, super bright and sunny out there. I think they have more sun than in that area than any other part of the country. What else? Who's got plans for the weekend now that, excited about the shelter at home being lifted starting Monday here in Minnesota? I'm not sure what's going on in Colorado or elsewhere, but looks like Krista. Hello, Krista. Yeah, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. All right, Amanda. Okay, discussion topic for right now. Let's see if I can expand on that. Here we go. Okay, so latest media surge on the COVID pandemic. Yeah, okay, fantastic. So they've been talking about surges, and even I find it fascinating that now our public officials are feeling so much pressure from the general public, from all of you out there, and saying that, you're crushing our businesses, you're ruining our lives, you feel like you're keeping us safe, but we're actually feeling worse off now because of it. And so now they're saying, well, we're gonna lift the ban on bars and restaurants in Minnesota come June 1. The gyms can open up again, but they got to be at 50% capacity. And we're just delaying the spike. Now they're saying that there's going to be this massive spike down the road, just keeping you living in fear. Everything is about keeping you in fear because most people don't know where to look as far as getting the information and understanding it. I think I've done at least one video a week, with the exception of this week. Another sticky note. All right, sweet, thanks. All right, that's how I get my questions these days. They get handed over. So basically, if you have been listening to anybody outside of CNN, NBC, PBS, Canadian Public Broadcasting, the BBC, any of those, then you're basically listening to the scientists that actually work in disease and work in immunology and epidemiology and things like that. And they're tracking the statistics, and you're understanding that the quote-unquote infectious rate is not what it is, okay? They're labeling people that have come in with 3 or 4 comorbidities, which means they have 3 or 4 different diseases at the same time, which is what a comorbidity means. I have diabetes, I have hypertension, and I have some 3 other things, right? They're coming in, and they might even already have pneumonia. They're already in their third stage of life. They're in their 70s and above, who are the people that are most susceptible to this, people that are immunocompromised. They already have disease in their body, and then they're going into a hospital or something like that, and then they're being labeled with. They don't say they died because of COVID-19. They say they died after having been diagnosed with it. So, which basically, for any of you out there who doesn't understand what that means, that's like medical speak for. They didn't die of it, but they had the conditions, they had the symptoms related to that at the time they died. But you out there are going to listen to that and say, oh, they died of COVID-19, so they're going to be afraid. They're going to say, oh my gosh, another person died, right? I haven't even looked at the statistics lately to see how many people have died. I know Gracia shared with us a infographic basically of the number of deaths within the states around Minnesota. So, North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, Nebraska, and I think Wisconsin and Illinois were in that picture. And what they were showing was basically the number of deaths in that area. which if you look at it first, you're like, wow, because it says, no quarantine, no quarantine, no quarantine. The states that have the no quarantine, they say there are fewer deaths. But you also have to understand that last time I checked, and that information is a few years old, there were just as many people, if not less, in North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, and Nebraska combined than there are in Minnesota, right, in the 9-county metro area. So basically, this surge, right, how many people are going to die, right? People are out there, they're dying more of fear than they're dying of COVID-19 because fear, of course, is going to affect your lungs, okay? I can assure you that fear of failure, fear of something bad is going to happen, which is also related to viral stresses. If you understand that, you understand that no single bug out there is going to kill you. It's a combination of things. So yes, there is, Amanda, a balancing point. Let's see if, I don't know if I can get this thing to expand. Tiny print and big fingers, they're not a good match. Oh, there we go. Okay. So Amanda added to her message before, there's a fine line between balancing this all. She avoids the media, which is fantastic. NPR, she will read, yep. Yeah, good point. You don't know what to believe anymore. Ultimately, I would strongly encourage you to, Dr. Kaufman, Dr. Cowan are two individuals that I've been following who have been involved. There are, Rashid Buttar is another medical physician. What's crazy about the people that are having dissenting voices that are going against the mainstream media and saying that, look, you have to look at the numbers. Even the guys out in the urgent care centers in California are saying these numbers don't flesh out what you're saying as far as the death rate and as far as the infectious rate. It doesn't flesh out. The statistics aren't there. Now, Governor Walz and everybody else, like Fauci, they're going on these computer models. These are computer models, right? They've been using computer models to try and track the polar ice cap melting for decades now, saying that the Earth is, warming and this and that, and the statistical models just haven't been there. So the statistical model is trying to predict something not based on actual current events. So if you don't know what to think, I'm with you. I understand your feelings of being perplexed and the fear that goes along with it, but you must consider the deeper issue, right? There are plenty of people out there that would argue that this is a very well orchestrated attempt at manipulating people. I don't really care what side of the coin you're on. All I know is that when you understand that your body will produce a virus in order to heal something in your body, and it does not happen from the outside, like someone with COVID-19 could, cough and sneeze and, spit in a bag, and I could breathe into that. They've done these experiments with horses in the past. I forget which pandemic it was, but they were basically taking swabs of animals that had illness, and they were exposing animals right in the same area, and they were not getting sick from it. Because the idea of transmissibility, the idea of the germ theory, right? If there is no stress within your body's not going to fall ill, right? And you're not dying of COVID-19, you're dying of comorbidities, which is other diseases that get to the point where your body cannot detoxify. Your lungs become so saturated with mucus and things like that because your body's trying to heal itself that you end up dumping so many exosomes into your lungs, your body just cannot excrete them out, okay? You're dehydrated, your liver's toxic, you're drinking too much coffee, too much booze, eating crappy food. I see people out here, and regardless of your body mass index and things like that, people who are overweight and trying to battle their weight and stuff like that, because there's a whole other avenue there, there's a whole other conversation to have about why we hold on to weight in the first place. But they, at some point in their life, have deviated from eating a healthful diet and a healthful lifestyle, and maybe they're trying to find their way back. Maybe they've just thrown in the towel and said, screw it, I can't beat the cravings or whatever it is, or they can't find a way to balance their metabolism. Whatever your case is, there's no judgment. It's just simply saying that there is a recipe for each one of us in order to figure out what our health is, what our optimal health is. And you just take a step back and say that 99% of people that are affected by quote-unquote COVID-19 will slap it to the side or have some type of flu-like symptoms and then be unaffected by it. So when you can understand that, you can understand that the flu, the common flu of 2017, 2018 killed 61,000 people, and nobody ever even blinked an eyelash. They're like, bat an eyelash at it. They're like, well, whatever, it's just the flu, right? Or they simply labeled it. Now you have people here, and they're going to the hospital, and they're having genital things, and they're afraid, and then they're being labeled COVID-19. I mean, people are coming out of the woodwork saying, my father, my brother, my son, my wife, my sister did not die of COVID-19, but they were labeled as it, okay? Now, I don't think we need to get into, the motives behind labeling someone with that. Partly it's because they want to make sure that they're not underfunded as an organization, but some people are out there trying to take advantage of it too. So some people are saying, yep, if I can put somebody on a respirator, I can get $40,000 from the federal government for that respirator, and so on and so forth. Other people are like, well, if I just label them COVID-19, at least I know that I'm not going to be under-supported if it is a massive issue, which will give me, $13,000 to $14,000. I mean, this is all, Senator Scott Jensen brought this to everybody's attention in the state of Minnesota, and he's basically been interviewed across the country now. But of course, it turned into this big political issue, and now it's the red state, blue state, and the blue states want to keep everything controlled because they want to vaccinate the crap out of everybody, and the red states want to open it all up just because they want to screw the Democrats and whatever. It doesn't matter which pot you want to piss in. Ultimately, it's our family, friends, and loved ones. Their lives are crumbling and being crushed because less than 1% of the people of this planet are going to be affected by this. So what have I said this entire time? I encourage everybody to continue beating this drum. Sequester and quarantine the people who are at greater risk. Support them with every ounce of support we have. That's 1% of the population. Okay? Our systems can handle that. It's been proven statistically. Our systems can handle that. So take those people, put them in quarantine, and let the other 99% start building what is supposedly thought of as herd immunity, and let them go there. Okay? That's a much more efficient use of our time and energy and our resources. So, Amanda, hopefully that provides some information. If you need some links or some ideas, I have them at aplenty. So you go ahead and email us at info@secoyahealth.com, info@secoyahealth.com. We'll provide that information. Let's see, see if I can get this here. Nope, that's the wrong button. No, I don't know what time it is. Okay, 12:55. Here we go. Last question. We'll broaden it out today with this one. What are some ways to calm down and recenter when you get triggered by others? Okay, great. Calm down and get recentered. There we go. Yep, thank you, Amanda. I appreciate you sharing that question and that desire for information and being empowered. It's super important that you just question everything, because if you're being fed it by CNN, NBC, Fox, I don't care what news organization, they all have a bias, okay? As much as I am human, I try to be as unbiased as possible, and I look for resources to say, okay, this has been peer-reviewed, this has been vetted out, this information's been looked at by 5-6 different people, the information's there, the science is there, so that I can provide that information to you folks, because you don't have time, I mean, not that I have a ton of time, but you don't have time to necessarily, or know where to go to find this information. So that's why we provide this information. So I appreciate the opportunity to serve you, Amanda, and all of you who have been with us today. But I believe it's Jen's question to what are some ways to calm down, recenter when someone triggers you, okay? Best thing to do is identify when it happens. If you can identify when you've been triggered, and you can identify that your blood boiling and your body being tight, or you hold your breath or whatever it is, okay? First thing to do is identify that so you can see it coming and get better at identifying it, because then you can short circuit the trigger every time. And the better you get at short circuiting that trigger, the better you're going to get at is identifying the situations and the people in your life that are causing you to be triggered. Okay, so I get a little passionate about this, so you can see my tempo just ticked up. But practice observing your thoughts, your feelings, and the situations you're in. If you find yourself getting in a fight with a certain person all the time, you want to identify, like, okay, what is it that irks me every time about this person or this situation, or what is the communication pattern? What are they saying? What am I hearing? What am I saying back? How am I reacting? Am I reacting in anger? Am I reacting in calm? Am I reacting in stress? Am I freaking out? Am I balanced? Am I calm? What is it? How am I reacting? So when you can do that, first of all, that's your first step. I would strongly encourage that. Second step is take a step away, okay? We have tried to instill in our daughter Sophia, I believe my wife Sarah came up with the idea. She heard it from someone else, probably the Unconditional Parenting blog. If you haven't figured that out or are aware of that for you parents out there, Unconditional Parenting. Sam, I believe, is her name. She's great. A little plug there for her. I don't know her. I'm not affiliated with her anyway, but she provides a lot of helpful information for unconditional parenting. Anyway, maybe she learned from there. Maybe she learned from Unconditional Parenting, the book. But it's called 1, 2, 3. You take a deep breath. I'm taking care of me. Okay, not necessarily in that order. You take a deep breath and exhale, and you say 1, 2, 3. I'm taking care of me. You don't have to say it out loud. You can just say it in your mind. Just break the cycle, okay? If you find yourself getting enraged, getting angry, getting frustrated, you just walk away from it, okay? And if someone's after you, like some people will go after, they'll follow you. They'll wherever you go, they'll keep after you. Ask kindly and politely that you need them to respect your desire to have some space. Excuse me, I need some space right now. I need to process this. We'll continue this discussion in a minute, but I need some space right now. Because if someone's badgering you and constantly following you around, if you leave and walk away, or if you're not being constructive about it and you're just blowing up and then walking away, that's not very constructive either. If you just try to shut down a conversation, but if you say, you know what, I'm feeling overwhelmed right now, and I need a second to process this, then we can come back to this because I'm feeling overwhelmed and I'm getting angry about this, so I'm not going to be responding in a rational, calm, positive way. So you take a step away, 1, 2, 3, I'm taking care of me. Deep breaths, you can do some tapping, EFT, whether it's on your forehead, they have specific patterns. Different acupuncture points is really what they're doing. Tapping on your arms. Basically what you're doing is you're breaking up the pattern. So if you have a trapped energy in your body called an emotion, it's energy in motion, you want to break up that pattern. So do some tapping, do some deep breathing, close your eyes, go into a quiet place, go for a walk, jump up and down, take some deep breaths, whatever it is. But identifying the trigger first, breaking the pattern, getting better at breaking that pattern in the future so you don't get triggered back into that pattern, taking deep breaths, walking away, finding some space, getting calm, asking for time, whatever it is for you. Those are what I would recommend as your first steps going toward recovering when someone triggers you. But you always want to ask yourself, why did I get triggered in the first place? What did it provoke within me that it caused me to feel that way? And if you can understand that, then you can go a lot deeper in understanding how to not get triggered in the future. Okay, if that makes sense. All right, so thanks for the question, Jen. Appreciate that. And I guess we'll wrap it up for today. But appreciate all of you joining us today. It's our pleasure to provide information for you and bring value to your life and to the life of your loved ones. That's our singular mission at Secoya Health, is to help you live your best life and help your family members live your best life. So we'll sign off for now. We'll look forward to seeing you next week for the Wednesday Wellness Minutes. We'll try not to call this the Wednesday Wellness Minutes next Friday, but sometimes my mind gets tracked on that. So go forth, have a fantastic weekend. I know it's supposed to be raining tomorrow here in Minnesota, but I'll tell you what, there's no such thing as bad weather, it's just bad preparation. So grab your parka, grab your poncho, grab your raincoat, grab your umbrella, whatever you got to do. Get outside, breathe some fresh air. Compel your elected officials to get our lives back to normal. Protect those who are at risk of ill health. Put them in quarantine, put them in the bubble, if you will, and then let everybody else live the rest of their lives, okay? So for now, we'll sign off. Take good care, everybody. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.